Over the holiday break, something interesting happened. Anthropic gave you a 2x increase in your rate limits on Claude Code. And I decided that I wanted to try my best to hit it. And man, have I had a wild ride. I never thought I'd see the day where I'm running 6 Claude Code instances in parallel, but this is basically my life now. I haven't opened an IDE in days. I have been building more than I've ever built, and I'm questioning what the future looks like for us as an industry. I knew Claude Code had improved since I last used it, and I knew Opus 4.5 was capable of things that I didn't think were possible using LLMs previously. I did not think this would fundamentally change the way that I write code. Over the holiday break, I built 2 full projects from scratch, a web and mobile app for one of them, did some crazy overhauls to those projects throughout, published a bunch of work for new features in T3 Chat, and just configured my entire operating system using Claude Code. I think it's safe to say at this point in time, I'm a little Claude Code pilled, and I want to share a bit about why. That said, Anthropic is certainly not paying me any money. In fact, I had to bump to the $200 a month subscription to do this, so we're going to do a quick break for somebody who is paying me, today's sponsor. A lot of people say my products are only successful because I'm popular, and they're kind of right, but not for the reason you think. Turns out if you have a bad product and you put it in front of a bunch of people, they don't care. But if you have a good product and put it in front of people, they do. But that's the key. You have to have a good product. In order to do that, you need a good team. This is the benefit I have from being popular. I have access to millions of the best engineers in the world. And I don't know how I would build without that, because I remember the days where I was recruiting the old school way, and it was hellish. If I didn't have access to the engineers I do, I would certainly be using today's sponsor, G2I. These guys know how to hire. In fact, they have placed some of the best people in my community at really cool companies. I've been blown away at the projects that G2I is involving themselves in. Everything from Webflow to 1Password to Facebook themselves. Yes, Meta hires through G2I now, and it makes sense why. They really understand what developers need to be successful. They run things like React Miami. The people who work there watch every video that we post. They know how to integrate with your team in a way that doesn't feel like some weird third-party arm doing recruiting for you. They're building a platform to help you find the best people for the gig when you need them. It doesn't matter what you're trying to fill, junior, senior, front-end, back-end, full-stack, mobile, data scientist, all the above, for all sizes of companies, by the way. If you just got out of your YC batch and you're trying to get a good engineer, don't waste all of your time going through recruitment hell when you can work with a partner like G2I and have a much, much better time. Their goal is to get the first PR in within 7 days of joining, and I've seen this happen enough times to believe it. Stop wasting your time hiring and get back to building at soydev.link/G2I. I'll admit, this was a demo I just rigged up for the sake of this video. I just had a bunch of Claude Code instances editing pages on my personal site. But it's not too far from how I've been using things in reality. I have been making a lot of real work and doing a lot of surprisingly difficult tasks with Claude Code. I've gone so deep that even Ben is surprised. I'm doing things he didn't think the models were capable of. Just to get us started, I want to show you guys the main project I cooked throughout break. This is my new Image Studio app. This is meant to be a prototyping playground to figure out what we want the image generation experience to be like in T3 Chat. And yes, it's that image gen mock demo I've been doing all the time. The difference is it's no longer a mock. So apparently I never set up scrolling for the sidebar, which is kind of hilarious. Normally my screen's a little higher resolution than it is when I'm filming. So I can't actually hit the generation button because I never set up a scroll view here. So I'm just going to show you how I've been using things. The sidebar in the web app does not allow me to scroll. This means that on small screens, I'm unable to hit the generate button. And now we wait, not even that long, and this issue will be fixed. You might have noticed I specified web app. There's a reason for that. Not only did I build this app as a fully functioning web interface, I actually went as far as to make it a monorepo with a mobile app too. And how I did that is possibly even crazier than the fact that I did both. We'll get there, don't worry. One of the things of note is that when you start a new session, it doesn't really keep track of any context. You can /resume to go to an old session ID, but if you don't, it has to recontextualize its knowledge of the code base. It's actually been really nice to be in a long-running thread where I just tell it to do something else and it knows enough from previously to know where to start. I no longer find myself clearing the history and starting a new chat thread for every single thing I do when I'm doing agentic coding with Claude Code, especially if it has a pretty good idea of where things are in a code base for a medium-sized project like this. To be fair, the implementations on any of the pieces of this project are still relatively small, but the amount of surface area there is to cover now across the multiple packages is actually quite reasonable, especially considering the fact that I have yet to open an IDE for this project. Forgot to turn on bypass permissions because I'm running it allow dangerously now. That's the point I'm at in life. Fun run dev. Oh, it does not appear to have worked. When I try and scroll on the sidebar, it attempts to do a whole page scroll, which doesn't work because the only scroll container currently functioning is the scroll container for the grid. I think we need a different approach to make scrolling work properly on the sidebar. Of course, the thing isn't working the way it does almost always when I am using it, when I am now here trying to film. Chat making a very good point that this alone just disqualified new vibe coders. Yeah. This is still the problem, and I want to make sure that when I do content about this stuff that I emphasize this point. These tools are significantly better if you already know how to code. Their strengths are much weaker if you don't yet. But now that I've made this one specification, it was able to make the right changes and get this all working as expected. Awesome. Sidebar form fields now scroll independently when the generate button stays fixed at the bottom, and I will command minus a bunch to make sure it goes away when it's zoomed out enough. It does. Awesome. So now that we know this all is working as expected, Sure, we'll do 16 by 9. Why not? Standard resolution, because some of these models don't support higher res. Actually, if I turn off Nano Banana, we can do high res. Generate. And now we have 3 models separately generating images for this random test I wanted to do. Of course, the backend is all through Convex. You guys know I've been loving Convex. Front end is a standard Vite Tailwind app. All of the UI was done by Claude. We had a lot of back and forth. This is rendition like 5 or 6, like full UI overhauls, because those types of things are surprisingly easy to do with a tool like Claude Code. If you just spin up a few work trees, throw Claude in them, and tell it, you can even copy paste the exact same prompt. Like, I want to redesign this homepage. Something stupid I have been doing recently is having it spin up 3 different routes with the exact same feature, like /1, /2, /3, and then I go and compare them and tell them, I like this in Route 1, but there are some things I like about Route 2 and 3. Can we bring these ideas over, but focus on the design from Route 1? And it handles this stuff incredibly well. And good point, chat, I did also use ShadCN. ShadCN has made my life much easier. By the way, if you like these types of exploratory videos about how the dev world is changing and how my own development work is changing, I love doing this type of content. And one of the best signals for the team that you like this is to hit that subscribe button. Less than half of y'all are subscribed, and we're so close to hitting 500K. So if you don't mind, hit that button. Helps us out a lot. But let's pick one of these that we like. This looks good enough. Obviously, arrow navigation works fine. If I didn't even need to tell it to do that, it just did. Seed Dream did not honor the aspect ratio I gave it. That's a good thing to know. But Nano Banana Pro did. Let's do one of the features I was most excited about here. You can't see this button, but there's a little chat icon right there because any picture you generate in this app can become a conversation. Let's say we specifically want Nano Banana Pro and Seed Dream to do this. Replace the sea lion with a corgi. And now we have a chat interface for follow-ups. Of course, image generation models still aren't the fastest thing, but they're more than fast enough. And here we are. We made a new generation with a corgi. Still one click to download if you want to do that. We can zoom in and see him if we want to get better look. Not bad. How's this one? I like this one more. So we'll pick the Nano Banana one, and we will do one more follow-up. In this follow-up, I will tell it to, I don't know, change the text to say Corgi Co. I'll be more specific. On the sign. This has been a super fun side project, both for playing around with Claude Code and trying to push its limits, but also for playing around with new UX flows. I wanted to see how it would feel to have a 2-style view, where we hop between a gallery view and a chat view. I was just really curious how it would feel to use a UI like this, and I'm finding that for the most part, it's really good. There are catches, there are always catches, but I am actually overall quite enjoying this experience, especially because thanks to Convex, not only does it sync fully, it syncs fully with the mobile app. I want to show you guys some of the most absurd prompts I've run in my life because I did not think this would work. Here is a real prompt that I sent to Claude Code. I want to turn this project into a monorepo with the current web app and a React Native mobile application. For the mobile app, use the following stack: Expo, React Native, Expo Router, TypeScript, Bun, Uniwind for Tailwind bindings, and Convex using existing Convex bindings. We only care about iOS for now, so don't put meaningful effort into multi-platform support. Ideally, the Convex bindings and definitions will be shared between projects. Use Turborepo for managing the monorepo and subpackages. Write a thorough plan. This was meant to be a task it could not complete. I got here because I am now convinced there are very few tasks Opus in the right harness cannot complete. I mostly did this as a joke. I was planning on taking a screenshot of this prompt and posting it on Twitter, saying, LOL, nothing can possibly do this. And then it did. Yeah. This run took over an hour, if I recall correctly. The plan took like 20 minutes by itself. Can I go to this plan? Look at that. The plan is still saved. This is just the mobile app feature implementation. Is there a, or maybe it like overrode this at some point? Yeah, I think it overrode this at some point. So the history here is the right one. Convert the current web into a Turborepo monorepo with a new Expo React Native mobile app sharing the convex backend. We have apps, web, mobile, packages, backend shared, TypeScript config for sharing TypeScript config stuff between things, Turbo, JSON, package, JSON, and PMRC. It had names for all the new packages, designed the foundation with a root workspace config, and PMRC in order to handle the weirdness that is how packages are linked between things in Node and monorepos. Created the different packages it needed to, moved things over to app/web, even calls out critical files it's going to have to modify and change. Phase 2, it extracted the shared packages. You get the idea. It wrote a very thorough plan. I gave it a really quick once-over. I don't even think I told it to change anything else, if I recall. I think I just said, do it. Looks from here like that's exactly what happened. And then it just ran. And it ran. And it ran. It even remembered to use its front-end design skill, which, by the way, is just a markdown file saying, don't make it look like AI slop. It tried running bun install. It got errors. It went and fixed a bunch of the versions. It updated the package JSON accordingly. It still got errors. It went and fixed more things. Then it stopped getting errors when it tried to build. It moved from Uniwind to NativeWind at some point because it was having problems with Uniwind. But it just kept going. Noticed more mistakes with how it was calling the APIs. I need to fix the mobile app to use the correct API functions. Let me update the home screen. And then suddenly, it was done. The monorepo conversion is complete. Here's a summary of what was done. Yeah. To be fair, the mobile repo had a good number of problems. Specifically, the convex URL was not loading into the mobile app properly. It also did a bad job of copying over my environment variables, both because I had changed to a mono repo and to a workspace, which is the JJ equivalent of a work tree, at the same time as I did this. So it just kind of lost track of environment variables. Did a tiny bit of moving files around in Finder to fix that. Then I kept hitting weird server-side errors that apparently were from NativeWind. Apparently my messages are missing from the history. They're not really great about history with the stuff. So I'm just going to show you guys the PR. Here is the mobile monorepo PR. The thing that was craziest to me was this. Graptile did a review of this PR and gave it a 5 out of 5 confidence score the first try, which I just didn't think made any sense. Called out some places where there were duplicate imports, but didn't really matter. And this is a huge PR. That's 2,300 lines added and 400 removed. It was able to break up one project into 5 packages with a somewhat complex Turborepo setup with no issues and add a mobile app. There was a slight problem with it adding the mobile app, though, which is that it ran the expo init command, which by default includes git, which caused a sub-git tree to exist, and JJ just ignored it. So I actually forgot to include the mobile app in this when I merged it, which shows you how thoroughly I was reviewing the code. I didn't even notice that the app was missing. This ended up bothering me much later as I was trying to do other things with work trees, and the mobile app was missing when I did it. Again, turns out I had forgotten that. Ended up asking Claude for help with JJ, fixed my history, because again, JJ just doesn't give a fuck. You can go edit your history. It's so nice. And then re-added the mobile app on a separate branch, asked Graptile to review again, and again got a perfect fucking score. My hand-rolled changes that are like 200 lines of code usually get like a 3 out of 5. And I was hitting 5s out of 5s constantly with the changes that Opus was making. Now, is Graptile going to be the objective, perfect way to review code? It saying 5 here and 3 there means that this is better than that? No. But it is fucking fascinating to see. And if you look through the code, it all makes sense. Maybe a 1,000-line of code TSX file isn't the greatest thing in the world, but welcome to React Dev. We have all the mutations for all the things that we are doing in a thread. A timeout that will help with the scroll to end. That all makes sense. God, the GitHub UI is obnoxious. It didn't quite get the keyboard avoiding view properly, but it wasn't too far off either. But honestly, I can just show you guys. I should use another mobile phone for this, but I'm dumb. So let's just do it. And here we are, the mobile version. macOS's mobile share thing is really annoying with resolutions, but we have the mobile app and it works. And since, again, we were using convex, everything stays in sync. So if I go and create a new gen here, 2 corgis sharing an ice cream cone, and I hit gen here, it syncs with the web UI as well. With no special anything. I didn't tell the model to do this. This is just convex, which is another one of those things that has fundamentally changed how I build. But one of the things that makes all of this so powerful is that convex is just a folder in the code base that you configure, which means the model doesn't need some crazy MCP bullshit to go change settings in a dashboard. It just edits the folder. You get the idea, though. This is a full functioning mobile app that's a lot less laggy on my phone. It's actually been pleasant. Like, I've been using this to do random image gen for some work stuff. The hardest parts of this project, by far, were dealing with GCP and the Google Cloud dashboard to get the tokens I needed to do auth, and then configuring Clerk, Convex, and all of the Vercel stuff to handle build and deployment properly for a productionized version. The thing that was hard for this was getting it into prod because I had to fight all of these legacy dashboards and tools and things. Everything else was super smooth. Even other annoying bullshit like implementing auth, which even with the best tools, even with things like Clerk and WorkOS, is not the easiest thing, especially when you have multiple platforms and 3 different packages in your code base that need to have auth added. I need it in the mobile app, I need it in the web app, and I need it in convex in a way that the convex functions know the user is auth and they know who the user is. All of these layers are annoying to get right, even on a good day, and it just did it. It's another 1,800 lines of code added, but it did it and got another 5 out of 5 confidence score. So I merged it. Would I put this code in front of all of our users for T3 chat without a more thorough audit? Absolutely not. But is it worth talking about the fact that I was able to, from scratch, build all of this without opening an IDE a single fucking time? I think that's worth talking about. That's 11,900 lines of code. That's a real code base. That's not a massive code base, but that's a real code base. And this entire thing was generated on the $200 tier of Claude Code. That's just absurd if you think about it. This isn't just tab complete in our editors. This isn't just like, go change these 3 files for me or deprecate this thing. This is a fundamental change in how I think about writing code. And also a bit of a change on how I think about using my computer. We'll get to that in a sec, but I want to show one other project I built using all of this. One of the problems I have with Claude Code and tools like it is now that I'm running these jobs that can take 45 minutes to multiple hours, I find myself getting distracted. And then I don't go back when the work is done. And I don't want to set up some audio queue or some shit. Even if I did, I don't have the discipline. I'm just going to browse Twitter, which is why I made an extension that locks me out of Twitter unless I have work going in one of my Claude Code terminals. I'll ask it to make the UI look better, just some bullshit busy work. And now my Twitter's unlocked, and I can once again see my tweet where I complain to the Claude Code team that I can't hide my email address. But as soon as the work is done, I will be locked out of Twitter again. This has been a weirdly powerful boost to my productivity. And I have also not opened up an IDE to look at the code for this project at any point. Do I look at it on GitHub sometimes? A little, not much. Would I trust this code with my life? No, not at all. But is it a fun side project that I had an idea for that I was able to build in half an hour instead of a day? Yeah, that's what's cool here. It's changing whether or not I'm willing to make a project, not whether or not I'm capable. I was always capable of building things like this. I'm not doing things I couldn't do before. I'm doing things that I didn't bother doing before because suddenly they are so much easier to do. Ooh, which UI service do I want to improve? Never mind. I like it as is. Nah. And now it's done, and I'm back to locked out of Twitter. That's cool. The fact that I could hack this together in like 30 minutes of work where I was doing other things and working on the mobile app at the same time, that's really cool. I had 2 of these Claude Code instances running for the mobile app and then one running for this project all at the same time, and would constantly get kicked out of Twitter when I went to talk about it and ask people questions, because when all of the jobs ended, I would get booted. This was such a fun little thing to build. This one's open source, by the way. Claude Blocker is live on GitHub if you want to play with it. I've already submitted it to the Chrome Web Store so we can get the extension out ASAP. Those take a while to get reviewed, especially when you have more grandiose permissions because you need access to tabs to do things to pages. But I could do it. I could do it without much effort. I put this whole thing together without much time spent. People are already making changes to it, which is really cool. But man, like this type of thing was stuff that I would maybe do if I had a lot of free time sometimes. And I really want to emphasize this point. Like, these tools aren't just good for making your job simpler or trying to like do work that is tickets from Jira or whatever. The thing that's really fun for me with AI code is that there are all of these ideas and vague things that I like could have done. Like I could have built an app that was just to parse my Notion history, which I did today. I have a different file in Notion for every month where I log every day what I did that day. And I wanted it all to be in one file so I could hand it to LLMs to make them judge me and roast me. Just getting all of the content out of those in order was annoying. So I put them in a directory. I opened Claude Code. I said, make these one file, and it wrote scripts to run and make the changes to make it one file. These are all things I could do before. I knew how to write all of this code. But if I was going to spend a certain amount of time in a day writing code, it was more important that that time went to projects that mattered, and I didn't have as much left over to do fun side projects. And if I did, I would pick the single biggest, most fun side project, not dozens of them. Now I find myself spinning up random projects all of the time. And sometimes I find myself using Claude Code for things that aren't even projects. Remember that thing I said earlier about the way I use my computer changed? Let's just look at some examples. I need you to update my JJ config to sign commits the same way that my Git config does. This one I think I had multiple messages for. I guess it's just not restoring properly. That is really annoying. It seems like Resume is just kind of broken. Whatever. The thing I wanted to show is that I was able to update my JJ config to fix my commit signing by asking it to, and then it did. I was able to add a new script to my Z shell that was a script that will automatically break something out into a work tree, change to that directory, and copy over all of my env files from that project by just asking it to do that. I'm not just asking Claude Code to edit files in a code base and occasionally search the web for more context. I'm asking it to use my computer and make changes to my setup in my environment the way I normally would between like 5 different tabs, a bunch of searching, a bunch of trial and error. Or I can just tell Claude Code to do it and go grab a tea. It's unbelievable. There are so many things that just didn't make sense for me before, be it a new side project, be it a weird extension I want to build, be it configuration changes I want to make to my system, be it the move to JJ instead of Git, where I'm starting to move off of Git as my default like CLI and way of managing repositories. These types of things weren't as viable before, and now with things like Claude Code, they are suddenly much more viable. If you're still new to tools like this, I won't necessarily recommend that you do what I'm about to show you immediately. Definitely keep it in the standard prompt you for edits mode. Then when you have the confidence, switch over to auto accept edits. And then after you've done this for a while and you've let it run commands that edit your system, change things and take risks maybe a little more than you expected and were surprised with the results, like I and many others have been, you can switch over to allow dangerously. I understand why they hide it. I understand why they are so strict about this. But allow dangerously skip permissions, it's so fun. It's genuinely so fun. I admittedly have a bias here, which is that if I end up being one of those people where Claude randomly nukes my home folder, I get really good content out of that. If that happens to you, you probably don't have benefits. It probably just sucks. If that happens to me, it'd be one of the greatest days of my life. I could make so much good content about that. But it probably won't. But it could. But I'm also doing a few things to prevent it because I want to do my best. Due to a series of unfortunate events on Twitter I do not feel like going into, I was made aware of this new project, the Claude Code Safety Net. This is a plugin that you can add to Claude Code. Shout out Daisy for the plugin system. It's awesome. One of the coolest things about it. It's a Claude Code plugin that acts as a safety net, catching destructive Git and file system commands before they execute. So if the model decides to do some crazy shit with Git or some crazy shit with RM, it will prevent it from doing that and give you one last check to the user, even when it's in the dangerously modes. Will this catch everything? Absolutely not. You could still write a bash file and then put it in your system and then execute it that does those things, and it can and it will. The models love to try and work around the restrictions they have. If they can't edit a file by using the edit tool, they will run a bash script to edit it instead. If they can't do that, they'll run a Perl script to do it instead. The models are very, very weirdly willing to work around the restrictions you give them. So know that this will never be perfect. But again, for my risk profile and the things that I'm concerned about, the combination of the Claude Code Safety Net plugin and my own traditional usage of Claude Code in Allow Dangerously has not come close to causing me any problems. I've been impressed. This has been a wild deep dive over the last 2 weeks, and I don't know how it's going to affect the way I code long term. Obviously, I still love Cursor. I still have my investments there, so account for the biases accordingly. When I actually want to see the code and do my job as an engineer, not just dick around with a lot of different things and ideas, I still very much like using a tool such as Cursor. And when the code base already exists and has things going on in it, and I'm working in a code base as my job, Cursor's whole agentic environment is still something I really enjoy. But when I'm experimenting, when I'm screwing with my system, when I am in some crazy greenfield thing, or I just want to let something run in the background for an hour on some crazy task, I've been impressed with Claude Code. Now, there's 2 questions I know are already swarming the comment section because the people who are asking these probably didn't watch to the end. Sorry to them. Question 1, what about Open Code? Open Code's really good. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I wanted to try out the new Claude Code updates in the new Claude Code subscription tier in the way that a lot of people have been using it, because I haven't really had the Claude Code clicked for me moment yet. And this is what pushed me over the edge. It's a combination of Opus 4.5 being an unbelievably smart model and the harness getting mature enough that it's in a really good spot. Open Code is still the best option for almost every model. And it probably is almost as good when using Opus. And they also have a way that you can use your Claude Code subscription in Open Code. It's a bit hacky, but it seems to work fine. I just didn't feel like dealing with any of that. I'll evaluate it more in the near future. And now the next question, which is the Ralph loop. This website is questionable, and I'm assuming it was made by a model that was not given the front-end design skill. That said, if you're not familiar with Ralph Wiggum, he's a character from Simpsons. Also, hi, Gen Z. Good to see you guys. I know everybody else is familiar with The Simpsons. The point of the Ralph Wiggum loop is to let Claude Code continuously keep working, even when it thinks it's done, until some higher order, this is probably done, gets hit. Also, Miles decided to come say hi. Now that I am doing more vibe coding, I spend a lot more time petting my cat when I'm coding, so he now assumes when I'm working on code that it's cat petting time. You like Claude Code a lot, don't you, buddy? He prefers Codex because it's so much slower, so I get more time to pet him. Oh, he's being so cute. Anyways, as I was saying, Ralph is a bash loop. This is a way to run Claude Code and keep running Claude Code even when it stops and asks, are you sure? Or do you want me to reconsider this? Or I finished phase 1. Should I start phase 2? Just run in a bash loop and keep telling it continue, continue, continue until eventually it actually finishes. It's a fun strategy. Personally, I've found that Claude Code is pretty willing to just go for an hour or 2 without being told, it's okay, you can continue. I've had 1 time total thus far where it would stop after each phase and I'd be like, no, keep working, please. No, keep working, please, over and over. But only once ever did I hit that, and it was actually a pretty short run. Like, that whole run only took 5 to 10 minutes. But I've had other ones that took an hour and didn't stop at any point. So I still personally don't know how necessary this is, but believe me, the Ralph loop is something I very much have planned. So if you don't see a video about the Ralph loop from me soon, know that I wasn't impressed enough or didn't find it interesting enough to do one. But if you are interested in this, keep an eye out. I will almost certainly be talking about it. I think that's everything I had to say here. I'm impressed. Claude Code's gotten a lot better. I have my complaints, like the hooks still suck and feel half finished. Plugins are awesome, but don't have all of the functionality I need to be able to rely on them directly. Skills are kind of a joke. They're literally just markdown files. There's a lot of little UX things, like the way stashing works sucks. If you want to change things after you wrote your prompt, you're screwed. Context compaction feels really strange still. The way history management works and the way picture uploads work is still jank as hell. There's lots of little places it can improve. I don't want this to seem like it's just this perfect magical solution, but goddamn, I have been able to do a lot with this, and I've been really impressed. And one actual last thing, my usage. Remember, I was on the $200 a month tier with the 2x limits. I did manage to hit the limit on the $20 tier. I consider going to the 5x, which is the $50 one, and then up to the $200 20x one. But I decided to just go all the way and see how much I could use. Like, I was going out of my way. I was running 2 or 3 of these in parallel during most of my waking hours. I want you all to guess chat, mostly between like 13% and 90%, some people with some jokes. You can't really know your usage, and they work really hard to hide it. But if we look at the dashboard, you'll see that my weekly limit, I'm at about 2% of my usage. So this just reset. So that one being 2% makes sense. But this top level one, my plan usage, which resets 34 minutes for this session, 12%. And the highest I managed to get in my weekly limit last week was 7%. 7%, going as hard as I could. Take off that 2x and I was 14% for the week. From my napkin math from the tokens I was able to log, I did about $1,500 of inference in that time. I paid $200 and I got $1,500 out. As a user, I love this. That is a really good deal. As a company also selling inference that pays API pricing for a lot of Anthropic's APIs, I am pissed that I'm subsidizing this. The reason these subscriptions can give you 10x the inference you pay for is because they are subsidized by people like me paying full price over API. So on one hand, cool, I love using this. On the other, you're welcome, you ungrateful bastards. God, so much clicked over the last few weeks for me. I have a whole different worldview, a whole different view on how code works and where it's all going, and why people like Claude Code so much. I got nothing else. I hope you enjoyed this descent into chaos. Let me know what you guys think, and if Claude Code is driving you mad as well. Hope this was useful, but until next time, peace, nerds.